For old-fashioned recipes and your gardening needs, while sipping on Kentucky bourbon. You sit right back in your big red hat, we're taking rural back from the urban. Listen to the stories where Kentucky proud, share the giggles with all of your friends. You all tuned in to Friends Drifting.
Hey, welcome to episode 7 of Friends Drift In, your source for local farm-to-table movement in eastern Kentucky. It's canning season. The harvest is coming in and I am so excited. One of the things that my husband always says to me when you're doing anything, and like when he's in the garage, he says, Joyce, if I only had the proper tools. Now Leslie Workman is here with me today. Is that what Jim says for you?
Yes, it does. And it usually requires a trip to Lowe's. So.
Leslie is the Consumer and Family Science.
Almost. Family and Consumer Sciences agent
at the Extension Office here in Pike County.
Yes.
She's a graduate of Marshall University. Go Herd.
That's right. And go UK.
She's a rocker.
Right.
In fact, she likes Sammy Hagar, the Red Rocker.
That's right.
But now when we talk about the proper equipment, pressure canning scares me to death. I've been canning all of my life. I don't take anything for granted. Leslie, let's do this.
I'm going to have you pressure canning before this is over.
No.
Yes, we will. I promise.
All right, tell me how it goes.
Okay, we've got some beautiful green beans that you've got for us. We've got them all washed. We've got them snapped. We've got all the ends taken off, and they're broken into the right size pieces.
Right.
These are jars that we've got sterilized.
Always mason jars, never
always
not
mason jars.
mayo jars or,
No,
or
and,
old pickle jars.
Those commercial jars that you get from the grocery store are made for one-time use only. They cannot be reused, so don't even try it.
Right.
Because
So
if you try to process them again, they may crack on you.
They
don't
crack,
use it.
so you need a mason jar.
That's right, a brand new jar, or one that has been sterilized. And these just came out of the dishwasher,
Right.
so they're nice and hot.
You can use the sanitized setting on the dishwasher.
That's right, or boiling water. If you want to fill them and let them sit for a while, that will work as well. So they're good and hot, ready to go. So we're just gonna take our clean hands here and fill our jars.
Now we were talking about filling jars, and I said my mama used to compete for the state fair and the county fairs, and she was really meticulous about getting them in here, and they had to be stacked up like little Legos. But that's not really necessary.
Only if you're competing.
So how tightly do you want to stack when you're doing green beans?
Well, if you don't pack them tight enough, and I'm sure everybody has seen this, you get your beans done. That was too long. You get your green beans done, and you have some floaters, or you have that space at the bottom.
Right.
And that's because you didn't pack them tight enough. So if you give them a little shake, you get them to settle in there. I give them a little push with my fingertips. And you don't want to cram them so hard that there's not a little bit of space, because once you add the boiling water to them, they're going to start to soften a little bit.
Right.
And we're going to work to get the air bubbles out.
Now we talk about, when we fill these, when we're talking about canning, we talk about head space.
Yes.
And head space means how full you fill them. If you're doing tomatoes, it's different. If you're doing jelly, it's different. But there's sources to tell you just exactly how much space to use.
Right. Most jams and jellies is just 1/4 of an inch, which is not much.
Not
for
very
a
much
lot of
at
other
all.
products, it's a 1/2 inch. But for what we're doing today, it'll be a full inch of head space, which is really all of the threaded space that you see at the
Right,
top of the jar. So I don't know if you can see the top of my jar right here. I've just sort of got them loosely in here. I probably could stand a couple more years. Looks pretty good.
All right.
Now we need to add some canning salt.
Okay, gonna do the salt first.
Yes, before
And
we.
how much we gonna do?
We're going to do
Tablespoon?
1 teaspoon of canning salt per quart, and make sure you always use canning salt. You can't use regular table salt for this. It will make your beans cloudy.
What we're talking about, when we talk about table salt, we're talking about iodized salt, and it does make them cloudy, and it just discolors your product. And if you're going to all this trouble, you want to look pretty.
That's right.
And then we add some hot water, right?
Right.
And we've had this boiling. You'd like to do it with a teacup. I usually ladle it in, but we'll use a teapot today. Now, how full do I want to get this, Leslie?
Get it pretty close to the threaded space, and then we're going to use a wooden skewer.
About like that?
About like that. You want to do mine the same?
I'll do the same for this one.
I'm going to use a wooden skewer to sort of work down the side of the jar.
Never want to use a metallic knife because you might chip the jar. But what we're trying to do is work out those bubbles, correct?
That's right. There may be some bubbles trapped down in here. And don't skip this step. It seems kind of silly, but it's important. I think yours is about done. You want to work on mine? And at this point, you'll know if you need to add more water or not. But yours is nice.
You can watch the bubbles kind of roll up to the top. And you get those bubbles out of there. It helps help it to preserve, because if there's air caught in there, they're liable to spoil. Correct?
Yes, they will.
All right.
Okay.
And then have I got that a little too full, maybe?
See if you can push those down on top.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Now I'm going to take a clean rag and just clean off the very top.
And we do this because we want to get a really good seal.
We don't want anything, water particles or salt or anything, to be on the top of that.
Right.
Now, this is my magnetized wand here.
This is the greatest thing ever. And you don't get your fingers hot, and it's got a magnet on the end of it, and you just stick in there, and you get a lid.
Maybe.
Right?
Voila, one lid.
And the lids have been heated. Show them the bottom of those, Leslie.
Okay. If I can get another one out. We have so many. Well, and this is why people tune in.
It's real life.
Aha!
But the reason that you get them not only for sterilization, but you want to get this ring around here that gets it soft so that it will make a good seal when we put the rings on.
That's right, and that's the reason that we heat it. So it sits right down on here, okay? Then we have a band that we add to the top.
And when we put the bands on, how tight do we want them?
Just finger tight, not so tight that you can't get it
So
right
I don't
back
need
off.
Charlie to do this.
You don't need Charlie to do this.
All right.
Okay.
Then what?
Now we're ready to put it in our pressure canner. Are you going to get your mask back out again?
I'm ready.
Okay. We have our canner that's already been boiling. It's ready to go. We've got all our other jars in here, and you can't do a canner that isn't already full. You need to do a whole canner load full. So I'm going to add these 2 jars.
She's got a handy dandy lifter there, and those are hard to find.
This is a very old lifter.
Yeah, I love it though. It looks so cool. Mostly what you're finding now are these type.
Alrighty. Now we've got all 7 jars in here, and they're nice and even.
7 quarts.
Okay. This is our lid for our dial gauge canner. This is the vent pipe, and this is where we're going to watch for the steam to come out. Okay.
This is where it could explode, right?
It's not going to explode because we're safe. Okay. We're going to watch for it.
You're a professional.
We're going to watch, but anybody can do this at home. We're going to watch for it to steam for 10 minutes after we get it started here.
Okay. So we got that set. Now you're using a pressure gauge.
Yes.
You want to turn that so the camera can catch it? We're using a pressure gauge canner, and kind of point out what we're looking at.
Okay, this is our dial right here, and you can see it goes from 0 all the way to 20, and then there's a place over here that says caution. That's where you need to watch. But we also have, it has a pressure regulator on here, and that's what helps keep the pressure even. And we'll control how much pressure is in here by the stove, how much heat we apply to it. But you can see right now, there's a little bit of steam starting to come out, starting to come out of the top. And once we get a steady stream of pressure, we'll time 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
So while we're waiting on that, let's talk about this one. This is my pressure canner, which has been used once, but it has a different lid.
It does, and this is called a weighted gauge canner.
So what happens?
Okay, you notice the big difference is there's no dial, is
Right.
there? So
No idiot proof for me.
Okay, so the way that you change the pressure is it has these two different wings on it.
Those aren't earrings.
No.
Okay.
So this is 5 pounds. This is 10. You add the last ring and you get 15 pounds of pressure.
And that's what we need for green beans.
And it goes to 10 pounds for green beans, and it goes directly on the vent pipe itself. And the only way that you know that it's got the right pressure is it jiggles.
This is literally what it sounds like when it's ready to go.
That's right.
And you want it to have an even rhythm.
Right.
So you adjust by turning up and down the heat on your stove.
That's
correct?
exactly right.
So maybe I won't blow myself up.
I'm sure that you won't. But mostly what you find these days now are the dial gauge canners.
This was not old, about 2 years ago. But,
well, that's great that you were able to find one. So.
All right. So Leslie, there's two different kinds of canning. There's pressure canning and then there's water bath canning.
Right.
Why the difference?
Well, it really comes down to the acidity of the food.
And what do we mean when we talk about acidity?
Well, most things like jams, jellies, pickles, and tomatoes can be canned in a water bath canner,
right.
Which means you don't have to get out your mask.
Exactly. Water bath canner. Now this is what you get. This is what your grandma had. Real simple to use. If you can boil water, you can boil these up for canners. Now they come with, it's equipped with a rack. And the jars will set in here. Now I'm really short. And I hate these racks. I feel like that I'm manipulating it. They're heavy and I'm afraid I'm gonna spill them. So I don't use a rack. But it's very important that you have something in the bottom. What I like to do, and my mama has been here and I don't know where it went. My mama has been here and I don't know where it went. But I like to put a cake cooler, a little cake rack in the bottom, which is just flat. That keeps it up off the bottom.
Right.
That keeps that heat moving right on through. So for low acids, that would be jellies, jams, anything that's got an acidity like vinegar would be pickles, tomatoes.
Right.
We can do a water bath canner.
You can.
But for low acid, which is beans,
Right.
we use the pressure canner
Yes.
because
the temperature has to be raised enough to kill the bacteria that's in there.
okay.
I don't care if you boil water from now until Christmas.
It's only going to get up to 212.
212. That's right. And we need to get to 240 to kill that bacteria. I know there's a lot of people out there that still water bath can a lot of their vegetables, and it's really not very safe.
So if we were doing beans, if we were doing squash, asparagus, and corn would be what we would want to do a pressure canner with.
Right. And also anything that contains meat. So if you're doing soups, stews, anything like that, is a perfect time to use your pressure canner.
All right. And when we talk about beans, that's kind of my thing, and y'all know I like to garden. So I thought I'd like to show you a few of the different beans that are common here in Appalachia. When we talk about beans, that's kind of what I like the best, to talk about the garden. In Appalachia, our favorite bean is the white half runner. You can see it's kind of thin, got a big point on it. Snaps, we snap them off here. That's some of my best memories, is snapping beans with my grandparents. You just kind of run that bean down, snap that other end and pull it, and then you snap it. Now, if you were really good, you wouldn't have these hairs.
I'm not that good.
I'm not that good either. But if you were doing for competition, a lot of people like to chop the beans. You use a knife and measure them out precise, but I'm not that I got to get it done. These are Kentucky Wonders. If you watched my last program, these were the ones that were growing in the cornfield. These are another white bean. Now, I like to grow these. You can cook them for fresh beans and can them, but I like to dry them. But they're a white bean. Then these are fall beans. We call these fall beans. These are rattlesnake beans. And around here, rattlesnake beans make fine leather breeches. They're a white bean. And when you talk about leather breeches, what you do is you kind of snap the bean, and you go on and you string it out, and you use a needle and thread and you run them onto a big long string and you let them dry, air dry, and then you can rehydrate them and cook them. Now this is a greasy bean, and I don't know whether you can really see the difference or not, but it's kind of got a sheen to it. Whereas if we were looking at a white half runner, it's kind of a flat finish. White half runner is kind of hairy almost. It's got a texture to it. Greasy beans, fall beans, these are the ones that I like to cook fresh, but they're really slick. And again, these are a white bean. You can get greasy grit beans if you can't find them. Bill Best with the Berea College, you can get beans from him, and he is known in Kentucky as the Bean Man. Then I wanted to show you something that's a little different that y'all probably have never seen before. These are called cowpeas. And back a long time ago in Appalachia, they were very popular, and we've kind of gotten away from growing them. Now, what a cowpea is not really a pea at all. It's a legume. Legume means bean. But what it really is a bean. And it's a black-eyed pea. And you see how it's got the black eye? So these are something that you would dry rather than can. But you can add New Year's, these are a big deal to have black-eyed peas and collard greens for good luck.
I think they're beautiful.
So that's kind of some of the assortment of beans you could grow. Now, if you're just getting started growing, you know, into canning, one of the best resources, other than Leslie, is the Ball Blue Book. And no, I didn't get paid to say this. This is the Bible of canning. Why do you think it's the Bible?
Because it's been around forever, and it's actually something that we at the Extension Service recommend, and it's something that I keep on my desk during canning season, because if I don't have it in my Extension publications or a recipe that I need, I know that the Ball Blue Book also probably has it.
This breaks it down for you. It tells you low acids, high acids. It's got pretty pictures.
Plus, it also has general guidelines for canning.
Guidelines. It talks about dehydrating, so you could dry your vegetables for harvest. It also, one of the things in the back, real easy to cross-reference with, but it has a troubleshooting guide.
Yes.
What can go wrong when you can, Leslie?
A lot can go wrong when you can, if you're not careful.
Biggest things to worry about is after you've canned and processed, you want to make sure they're sealed.
That's right.
So when I pop this down, I'm not hearing.
The best thing in the world when you have put in all the hard work for canning is when stuff is cooling and you're sitting there, you can hear the bing, the bing,
bing.
of
That is such a music to
Yes.
a canner's ears, and you know that you've had success. Now, if a jar doesn't can,
Right.
what do you recommend?
You have
if it
24
doesn't
hours
seal?
that you can reprocess it. You just don't.
How long do you usually wait when you're doing pickles or these types
I
of
would
things?
reprocess it immediately while your canner's still hot.
So
just
you
go ahead and redo
you
it.
wait 20 minutes, and if it hadn't popped, then you put it back in?
No, go ahead and let it cool and see if it seals, and if it doesn't, then go ahead and reprocess it. If you don't want to do that, stick it in the refrigerator and you can go ahead and use it.
But that's what I do. If it's just one, you know, sometimes I've had whole batches go where maybe the lids weren't good, you know,
Right.
somehow, or I didn't do exactly what I should have done. But if it's one, I usually just go ahead and stick it in the refrigerator and use it right away.
And I've heard of recalls like on canning lids and things like that, and that easily could be an issue. It may not have been anything that you did.
But you want to keep your canning lids new. You want to keep them, buy them every season.
Yes.
And if you're a big canner, you may want to buy them up at the early in the season, because sometimes about this
They're
time
all
of year
gone.
they start running out.
Right. And remember, you can reuse your bands, but you never want to reuse your lids.
Your lids, because they are, once that seal is used, it's not going to seal properly.
No, it's not. I think it's about time for us to start timing our canner because it's been venting.
All right, so can we see that it's venting?
I think that we can.
All right.
It's got steam coming out of the vent pipe, so it's time to start timing it for 10 minutes. Now, Joyce, our canner has been venting for 10 minutes, and it's time to add our pressure regulator so we can start timing our green beans. Okay?
Sometimes I need to vent more than that.
Well, you have to go outside to vent more than 10 minutes. Okay. So, you can see by our pressure gauge still has 0, but you can see by the steam coming out the top that it's really steaming really well. So we're going to just add that right on the top. And in just a moment, you'll see the pressure start to rise on the gauge. And it has taken this canner probably 25-30 minutes to start the steaming process and get through all that. It takes a good amount of time.
So yeah, it does take a long time to can beans, but it is so worth it. When you have those beans and you put them in stews, or you pop that jar and you put them in just for your afternoon, evening meal.
Right.
So,
or even at Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
So many
green
people
beans.
hang on to those green beans.
How
to
do
use
you
the
fix your
holidays.
green beans once you canned them? When you're putting them on the plate for a meal?
I like mine with some buttered almonds. It's my favorite.
Buttered almonds. Green beans almondine, what they
That's
used
right.
to say at UK. And I thought that was pretty uppity, but it's green beans with the little almonds in it. I like mine, and I should hang my head in shame, but I like mine with a little bacon grease.
That's a good way too. Okay, Joyce, we are now at 12 pounds of pressure. It's taken us a long time to get here. Are you still afraid to take your mask off? Apparently you are. Okay, and I'm going to control the pressure on the pressure canner with the heat on the stove. So this is the time that you cannot leave the kitchen. We have to stay here.
Okay.
Okay, can you take your mask off?
Are we sure?
You've got black on your nose. Looks like she's been in the coal mine.
Maybe I have.
Now we have to time this for 25 minutes.
Okay.
At 12 pounds of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
If I turn the fire down too low and the pressure drops way down, I have to go back to 12 pounds and start my timing all over
we
again.
don't want to do that.
No.
So
It's very important when you're pressure canning or doing any kind of food preservation that you're very careful and that you watch the pressure and you watch your amount of time so that you don't have to start all over again.
Well, we appreciate you, Leslie.
Okay, so I'm going to watch the clock and I'm going to watch the pressure gauge and stay in here the whole time that it works.
All right.
Okay. Okay, now that our pressure canner has timed for 25 minutes, and you can tell by the gauge that it is a little over 12 pounds of pressure, that's perfectly fine. As long as it's not less than 12 pounds, it's safe. We're going to cut the gas off here, turn our stove off, and this is the time that we do not open the pressure canner. We have to wait for this vent lock to go down. You can see this little silver piece that's popped up. That tells us that there's still pressure in the canner. We cannot wait just for the dial gauge to go down to 0. We have to wait also for this to go down. After that's happened, we remove the pressure regulator, which is this piece, and then we need to let it to continue to cool for probably another 15 to 20 minutes at least before we remove the lid. And then we can take our jars out.
That's when the money's made.
That's right.
So if we want to can, we can find out more information from you at the Extension Office, the Pike County Extension Office. What's the phone number there?
That's right. The Pike County Extension Office is located in downtown Pikeville. Our phone number is 606-432-2534.
We have an 800 number too, don't we?
We do, because we have a lot of customers, clients that are out in the county and it's long distance for them. So if that's your case, you can reach us at 800-233-1390.
And ask for Leslie.
Ask for Leslie. And also I'm on Facebook, and that's facebook.com/PikeFCS.
There you go.
That's right.
So we can find you anywhere, anytime.
That's
You can't hide.
No, and you can, and I answer questions on weekends and in the evening as well. So if you're canning on the weekend and you need a question answered, just send me a message. I'm glad to answer it.
There you go. Let's put these things on the shelf. Let's get
I
them
think we
loaded
should.
and put them on the
Okay.
shelf. All right. It's been a really hot day in the kitchen, but I'm sure glad that we're back in the pantry now. We're wrapping up a day with Extension Agent Leslie Workman. We've canned green beans, a low acid,
Right.
with a pressure canner.
And we survived.
And we survived, and I'm not afraid anymore. We know that we can can tomatoes,
Right.
and any kind of peppers we can do with the water, or pickles that we can do with a water bath. But
Right,
when we're
and jams
doing
and jellies.
Jams and jellies, but when we're doing green beans and asparagus and corn, we want to use the pressure canner.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, we just put them on the shelves.
And you'll be glad to have these come the holidays.
Oh, and I'll share them with my friends. Friends Drift In comes together with a lot of people behind the scenes. I want to thank the Pike TV people, Al, and Eric and Ronnie. And I want to give a shout out to my good friend Dina Smith, who has had some surgery. She's always behind the scenes and supports me. Leslie, the way we end things on Friend Drift In, share the giggles.